About 47% of the polling unit results in the Ondo Governorship election have been uploaded by the Independent National Electoral Commission on its IREV portal as of 4:12 p.m. today. And there have been relatively mixed feelings as regards the conduct of the election by electoral umpire or representatives on ground in the different polling stations. But right now, we have an election observer and director, Center for Democracy and Development, Dawda Garba, who joins us live to give us an update. Thank you so much, Mr. Garba, for joining us.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so from what you've observed so far in Ondo State as regards the governorship election, kindly tell us what you noticed, if you would say it has been seamless so far.
Well, to start with, ahead of the election itself, we have had what we call the background paper to these elections, which also where we have before now indicated where we think the elections were going, and that background paper actually detailed what we the research we've done moving forward with the elections. And just after that background paper, we had also an opportunity to share the state of information and disinformation in these elections. And before now, we also had in those papers, we shared our view on the low turnout that we expected in the elections, because it appears that people were more interested in the state of hunger, how the economy was biting on the country. So we actually didn't actually expected what we saw today was something that was going to be different from what we had in those background paper. And today what happened has just come to confirm those things. Yes, the elections went in terms of went well. There were no much incidences of what I would call security issues. But what we particularly were surprised about is what happened with respect to the level of vote buying, or if you like, you call it vote trading. And across the board, the civil society were involved in this process, all have one or two things to say about what happened. And for us, it's not good for democracy, because we're getting to a point now where the political class will begin to weaponize the issue of poverty. And at some point, it looks like what is coming out is that people will now be focusing on mobilizing huge resources for election time. And what then happens when you have such thing is that how do you get the people so poor that they are unable to fend for themselves? And what's the dangers of that is that you begin to have a situation where the political class will always keep work money and arrange it somewhere and waiting for election day to deliver, to use the money to buy votes.
Could there be, Mr. Garba? Mr. Garba, could there be some form of checks on party agents or those who will be accessing the polling units before they are granted access to those places? Probably that could be some form of checking those who might want to vote trade in this instance.
Yes, I think that works, and we're also very concerned about the level at which people, those who in polling booths where you had a relatively good population, we thought that people were too close to some polling unit. But in some other areas, there were areas where there were also places where the population wasn't that close. But the fact also that we had expected that the security operatives will be able to reduce the number of the level of involvement with in the vote buying processes. But what we saw was that security were not even too interested in trying to intervene. In only a few instances, you had people who, if you drew the security operative attention to what was happening, they could, the best they could do was to tell the people to leave the arena. But it didn't in any way stop people from going to use voucher, use putting names together that, in a sense, that people would start doing transfer, especially for those who are using platforms like the OPay, the Money Point, and others. They became very the big issues that were that happened during the elections. So we've gotten to that point in the level of our elections that we need to take vote buying issues as something we need to really
address. So invariably, according to the IGP, over 43,000 security personnel were deployed to this particular election in Ondo State, but then they couldn't still nip activities of vote buying in the state. But then let's talk about the issue of the beavers, Mr. Garba. How would you describe the use of that technology? Would you say that it was enhanced in terms of its usage, according to what INEC promised before now?
Beavers were seriously enhanced. There were at least a great reliance on what we used to see in terms of the beavers. But the fact also remains that the few instances or the few incidents we saw was a situation where maybe certain elderly persons had issues with maybe not being captured. But again, there were two ways this could be done. If you're...
Mr. Garba. Okay, I think we just lost connection with Mr. Garba there. That is Dawda Garba, who is an election observer and the Director, Center for Democracy and Development. So I'm told that is back on air. Mr. Garba, we lost your connection for a while you were talking. You said that there could have been a way out when it comes to issues around beavers' failure in such instance. I'd like you to just continue from that point.
Yes. Yeah, I said the beavers worked very well,
okay,
but in some few instances, it was reported that the elderly persons had issues. And in the pools where we had, in the polling unit where we had issues, we had people who had to, like elderly persons, about 6 of them, who couldn't be captured. But again, even in situations where you couldn't use your thumb to get accredited, there were also opportunities for facial recognition. But of the 6 areas, of the 6 cases we had, 3 were corrected with the capturing of the facial picture. But again, there were other 3 that couldn't go through.
So by and large, Mr. Garba, yes, by and large, Mr. Garba, just about 30 seconds, does that mean that these few incidences would not skew or probably derail the eventual outcome of this election?
At all, they not in any way disregarded the success of the election with respect to beavers. Okay. But the only thing also we say that as security, even in the face of the, vote buying, security will say that it wasn't their responsibility to address anything, that it was only INEC responsibility to conduct the elections. Their own responsibility was to ensure that in the vicinity of the elections, they needed to ensure that there was peace and responsibility and security.
Well, we may need to visit the Electoral Act to know what the position or the responsibility of security personnel are when it comes to electoral processes and taking good care of it. But then thank you so much, Mr. Dawda Garba, for sharing your observations with us on the news.